Good afternoon to our calm and peaceful Rotary celebration of service. I'm Ron Barnes, and it's an honor to be your president. I have a thought for the day. There are two types of people who will tell you that you cannot make a difference in the world. Those who are afraid, and those who are afraid that you will succeed. Roy Goforth. We have a reflection today by the Honorable Roy Graham. Yes, please. Oh, you only get gonged when you're done. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's been a while since I've been here. For those of you that don't know me, I used to own a bakery called the Busy Bee in the 80s. And then I've been a lawyer about 32 years, and I'm semi-retired doing only criminal cases now. So what I wanted to talk about today is the connections brothers have. And of course, this doesn't mean that sisters don't have connections, but the stories I'm going to tell are about something that happened to me recently and then something happened to me a long time ago. And I think that there's so many things that happen in life. You know, we talk about coincidences. We talk about things that we can't explain. You know, for example, you're thinking about John and his wife, Mary, for 2-3 days, and then you haven't seen them in years, and then you run into them at the grocery store. I mean, we've all had this happen. I don't think there's anyone in the room that hasn't had this kind of experience, and we really don't understand why these things happen. People say, well, there's no coincidences. I don't have an answer. But I do think that we are connected in ways that we just don't understand. So the first story, which I may have told before, it's very short, and then I'll lead into the more interesting story, was when I first started practicing, I used to go see people in the jail before I got hired to see if I could represent them. And I went to see this young man who was accused of stealing a bike or something like that. He was a nice kid, young kid. And we're sitting there, we're talking, and I said, okay, well, this is my fee if you want to represent me. And I was just starting in practice. And so in the Monroe County Jail, you have to hit a buzzer to get out. There's like a little, something flashes. And so you're always waiting for a minute or two. And for those of you that have been at business meetings or any kind of meeting, it's always interesting that something that happens at the end, which nobody expected, is sometimes the most important thing. You know, if you were a psychiatrist, I've heard stories, they'll talk to people, and right when they're getting ready to leave, they'll tell them the thing that they needed to know through the last 10 sessions and they hadn't heard. So anyhow, so he says to me, he says, Mr. Graham, I have to tell you something. I said, what's that? He says, well, actually, he said, I didn't take the bike. It's my brother. We look alike, and he's in Iraq right now. This was in 1990. He says, I want to plead guilty to it. I said, well, I can't do that. He says, why? I says, well, because you'd be suborning perjury. I'd be having you testify about something you didn't do. He said, well, okay, that's fine. He says, but I didn't do it. My brother did it. Okay, so the story that I think is more meaningful, and I'll preface it with this. You know, there are many different religious persuasions, and I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but I think most all of them talk about awareness. You know, being aware of your surroundings, notice things that happen from, let's say, a child that falls or an old person that needs help in the grocery store, whatever. And one of the things that some of the early morning prayers say, and I'm sure this is in all faiths, but one of the standard prayers for many religions is, God directs my steps, and I have to pay attention. So what happened this particular day, I was driving up to Martinsville to work on an expungement case. And this was a case where the offense was fairly serious, so you had to prove it to the judge. It wasn't automatic. Most expungements are automatic. And so what happened was, I normally take one route when I go to the courthouse. And I decided this day I'd just take an alternative route which runs parallel to the main drag. Something told me to do it, and I went, okay, fine. So I went down the road. And I have an Explorer, so I'm a little bit high off the road, and I'm looking and I'm seeing someone walk about 3 blocks from the courthouse, and I'm going, God, I said, that looks like the profile of Jeff Lamar. And may he rest in peace. He passed away 10 years ago, and of course it wasn't him. But I had that thought, and I looked and I looked, and I said, and I couldn't look because another car was coming. But I had that thought, and I couldn't figure out why it was so strong. And so I got to the hearing. I went up the stairs. I met the client. And he said, I have people that are here to support me to get my expungement. He introduced me to one man. He introduced me to another. And then he introduced me to someone that I'd recognized. I wasn't sure. And he said, this is Roy Lamar. It's Jeff's brother. And I was like, holy mackerel, And I told him, I said, I was thinking about your brother. And he said, what happened? And he just gave me this look. So it's a pretty amazing story, but it's a true story. And so one of the things I learned in my work is that by being aware and paying attention, you will notice things that you wouldn't have noticed. And that day, I just had some thought to take a different path. And I had this amazing experience, and I just wanted to share that with you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Roy. And by the way, thank you for stepping up at the last moment, too. We needed help with a reflector today, and several people jumped to it, but Roy beat everybody to the punch. So thank you. I appreciate that. To introduce our guest, David Meyer. Dave?
We have 5 guests here in person, and it would be very helpful if you could, when I read your name, if you could stand so that we can recognize you. The first guest is Mark Berkowitz, a guest of Jim Bright. And then we have Beth Perney, who is a guest of Cindy Neidhart. Rebecca Mankowski, guest of Kyla Cox Deckard. Annalise Jenke, guest also of Kyla Cox Deckard. And Peter Haralovich, thank you, guest of Lynn Schwartzberg. Joy, do we have any guests online? Sally, do we have guests online?
I respond to all titles. I'm joyful today, although I'm not Joy. We do not. Thank you. Just a bunch of Rotarian Zoomers out here.
Well, I want to thank all our guests for being here today. And if you'd like to know more about Rotary, you're welcome to talk to either the person on the left or to the right of you. They'd be happy to tell you about it, about the club. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. We have some Rotary birthdays to celebrate. Jeff Baldwin today is his birthday. Happy birthday, Jeff. Emily Hannon tomorrow, May 8th. Joy Harder, who's not with us, May 6th, so yesterday. And Judy Schroeder, May 5th. So happy birthday to all of you. And we have one Rotary anniversary, Betta Deweese, 2 years with our club. So congratulations. Peggy Frisbee has an announcement for us. Peggy?
Well, hello, everyone. And I have a different hat on today. I'm actually here to talk about the Youth Exchange, okay? For the first time, I think the word is starting to get spread out. For the first time, we have a Rotary Youth Exchange student coming for next year. And that is just wonderful news. She's coming from Taiwan and will be coming this summer. So we are on the hunt, and I say we, that means Joy Harder, who's head of the Youth Services Committee, the Youth Exchange Task Force, and whoever else we can draft. We're on the hunt for finding host families, okay? This is an exciting and worthwhile opportunity to share our community and culture with her and to learn about this young person and her Taiwanese life. We will be hosting her jointly with the Bloomington Sunrise Club. So both of our clubs are joining together in this effort. And it's hoped that club members, now yeah, I'm looking at all of you, will volunteer to be hosts, but also hosts do not have to be Rotarians, okay? Each host family will serve as hosts for 4 or 6 months, depending on whether there are 2 or 3 host families. And while she's here, she'll attend one of our high schools. She'll live with the hosts and be encouraged to get involved in her school and community activities. And the Youth Exchange Task Force will also be organizing get-togethers and maybe short trips to share more with her and the hosts. And you will get to see her at some of our club meetings and events. My family and I hosted a student from Brazil, and it's some time ago at this point, but I can just testify that was a great, great experience, okay? If you are interested in hosting and want to learn more, or if you know someone who might like to host, you can contact Joy Harder, you can contact me, just ask anybody, but please, we are definitely looking for these 2 or 3 host families. And since she will be arriving just a few months from now, we really hope that you'll help us out here. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, David. As a former high school principal and then superintendent of a large district with several high schools, Rotary Youth Exchange is the best run youth exchange program in the country. So you will be supported. It's a great opportunity for you. And you'll just never forget the life-changing event of having a student in your home. Have some announcements. Again, if you're on Facebook, you may have a chance to see Dakar Abdullah's sharing about his graduation on Facebook. It's a wonderful review of his life and the pride that he has in himself and his graduation. I encourage you to take a look at it if you haven't. Also want to mention that our fellow Rotarian, Brian Bangert, and representatives of Building a Thriving Compassionate Community will be celebrated Wednesday evening, May 5th, during the City Council meeting. So congratulations for your hard work and effort to bring peace to our community. Happy dollars. I know a lot of you are happy because I see the smiling faces. So Michael will come around and
okay, thank you, Ron. 5 happy dollars for Teachers Warehouse in recognition of my good friend, our good friend, and past district governor, Lance Eberly. Lance led RLI, Rotary Leadership Institute, on Saturday. Awesome experience. So glad there. Special shout out to Steve Wicks, Geronimo Rodich, and David Wright, who were there and represented our club very well with Rotarians from other clubs across Southern Indiana. We all came away more enthused than ever about this wonderful organization called Rotary. Thank you, Lance.
I'm just happy. Okay, I'm going to donate $10 in honor of Bakir because what he's done is just incredible. Bakir Abdullah, you know, and do read about it because he accidentally kind of fell into Rotary, and we're lucky to have him And I think our support is important to him, and he's important to us.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte.
Have happy dollars for in celebration of my friend Bob Salzberg. Haven't seen him in a while, so I'm happy to see him.
I have a happy dollar to remind folks to help out with the annual Stamp Out Hunger food drive this Saturday. Put out your donated food, anything not perishable. Don't want perishable, don't want glass jars. Anything canned always works, or cereals if it's not raining. So be careful of that. But they need the food they serve that goes to the Hoosier Hills Food Bank, and they'll take all they can get. So I hope you could donate.
I have a happy dollars report on the Mohammadi family, the folks that we sponsor as refugees from Afghanistan. First, they now have a car in the family. The son, Shams, has purchased a car, and they're currently arm wrestling over who gets to drive it, because both Amina and Shams have passed their driver's tests and are licensed drivers. Also, on the happy note, Amina, who is now 26, she has a full-time job at the IMU, and she is saving money so that she can go to Ivy Tech, where she is enrolled for the fall, to resume, start on her nursing refresh. So lots of good news in the Mohammadi family. And they will be here. They will be at our meeting, which I don't think it will not be here, on June the 11th. And so we can all celebrate with them their amazing accomplishments while in Bloomington. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Here's a few happy dollars. My wife is retiring after 30 years as a police dispatcher for the Bloomington Police Department. So we'll be together 24 hours a day. Ask me in 30 days and I'm still happy.
Thank you, everybody.
Do we have any happy dollars on Zoom? Well, I'm happy because my choir of Otis Nove performed on Sunday to a packed house, and we performed a piece by Mary Getze, a fellow Rotarian.
Great. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, all of you. And I know Teachers Warehouse appreciates your generosity. And by the way, they're having a banner year. A lot of items went out the door, and a lot of teachers were served in our 6-county catchment area. So thank you. Jim Shea will introduce our program today. We have an exciting program. Jim?
Thank you, Ron. I am delighted to welcome our speaker today. I've known of him for about 20 years now, but I just met him for the first time this morning. When I was Director of Professional Development Programs at IU Continuing Studies, his dad, Gerry Masse, taught Photoshop and InDesign in a desktop publishing program. I used to refer to him as Mr. 5.0 because he consistently got the highest rating by everybody. Everybody loved this guy. So I got to know him, and he's from Boston originally. He had this very thick Boston accent. And he says, I have 50 acres out by Salisbury. Well, that seems odd for a guy from Boston to have 50 acres by Salisbury. He said, my son's put some sculptures out there. You ought to come out and check it out. And so I went out there and I was totally blown away. And so I'm delighted that we have the young Gerry Masse with us. He's the founding director of the Sculpture Trails Outdoor Museum in Salisbury since 2002. So you were 2 years in when I became aware of it. He studied furniture design and sculpture at the Heron Art School in Indy, where he earned 2 BFAs. He went on to earn his MFA in sculpture from the University of Kentucky. After graduation, he and his wife, Lisa, established the Sculpture Trail as a 501c3. He continued teaching sculpture at the University of Kentucky for the next 6 years. So, busy guy. Also in 2002, Gerry became the recruiting officer for the Open Air Museum of Steel Sculpture in Coalbrookdale, England. His crew ran iron once a month for 9 years before bringing the English cast sculpture workshops to the Sculpture Trails in 2010. The Trails cast iron workshops became instantly successful among participants and interns. The Trails intern crew runs over 25,000 pounds of iron for these workshops, producing pieces for artists around the world. Gerry has been director of the Trails Iron Workshop for the past 7 years. He also heads the Sculpture Trails Traveling Foundry program, which teaches the casting process through the production of large outdoor sculptures to more than 3,000 students annually. And if he's not busy enough, Gerry is the owner and operator of Antique Restoration in Lexington, Kentucky since 2007, and recently opened a second location in Louisville. Antique Restoration is a sculpture and antique refinishing shop that offers the conservation of fine objects, as well as the creation of custom woodworks, metal fabrication, and foundry services. He specializes in casting aluminum, bronze, or iron. So we have a man of vision and a very busy man, and I am delighted to welcome Gerry Masse.
Fabulous introduction. Thank you. Well, as Jim said, we owe it all to my dad for me standing here, obviously 20 years ago. He's always been my biggest fan. It was when we brought the iron from England to America when I said, hey, Dad, can I borrow the barn for just 1 month? And that was in 2010. And just recently he said, am I ever going to get my bond back? I don't think so, Dad. But Sculpture Trails for the last 20 years, you know, when we started, we were kind of trying to hide for a while. So we didn't have a lot of public stuff going on here until we got established. 20 years later, I think we're established in a way where we can now move forward on the next 20 years. And we're really coming out big time. We developed a public outreach, and this presentation is designed for today, mostly for elementary kids. And when you're going into a school, they are too cool to listen sometimes. So you got to have a lot of sparkles, excitement, danger. And we try to do that, but Lauda will tell you I might go a little too far sometimes. With the cast iron workshops, I realized quickly I needed help. So we created an internship program that's now expanded as an international internship program. This year, we just had 60 applications from around the world. We're bringing in 2 Polish, and they're all young artists. And the whole idea, and 2 English. So the crew this year of 25 is going to be really diverse and from around the world and almost, you know, from the West Coast, East Coast, every state. Now Lauda has a special part in the museum because she has become the artist in resident. It's a 2-year program and you have to internship 2 times. So it is an invitation only. So that means she really did a good job. Okay. And as Jim mentioned, in July, we run about 30,000 pounds of metal. So we've already ran almost 70,000 pounds of metal together. And that's how I knew she would be awesome, because she did it with a smile. And when you're working that hard, man, it's hard to smile all the way through week 4. And you're like, yeah, I still like this. But this is a great picture of when she showed up she got to be with her lady.
Yeah.
And this is the big furnace that we made. When we agreed to take the English workshops to America, we said, oh, absolutely. But we had nothing. We didn't even have a furnace. We barely still have nothing. But this furnace is a design that we came up with based on the very first one in England that began their industrial revolution in the 1780s, 1600s. Through that period, they made a remelting machine. So we stole all the numbers, and it is a hot rod. About every 7 minutes, it can give us about 200 to 300 pounds of metal. In 20 minutes, it can give us almost 1,000 pounds. So it quickly became known internationally as a place where artists could go to get big, large, very, very large castings. So we made a big ladle that hangs from a crane, and we could tap into it twice and get a ton. So artists know, hey, if you go to the trails, you can cast a whole 2,000 pounds. That's about, if you take a regular sized truck and chop it up into pieces, you'll have about half of that truck that will melt down. So in July, we melt about 7 to 8 trucks. That's a good way to think of 30,000 pounds. So we tell the kids are like, oh, I know the size of a truck. But anyway, Lauda, what are you doing at Sculpture Trails? Give us a quick.
So what I mainly do is during July, I help Gerry with the workshop. So I'm mainly helping the artists kind of get their molds together, prepped and poured on the line. But in the off season, what I do is I take care of the museum. So that means that I go out, I take care of the woods, I take care of the sculptures. I do public outreach. So I'm coming out with Gerry, going and doing presentations with students. We have kids come over and they'll pour with us or like watch us pour. And then I also get to work on my art during my off time. So.
And there'll be no off time. No kidding. So when we make our art, this is why we try to hide. It's not really good to have a bunch of public around when we're doing this. Just liability, you know? So the kids love when we hand out our helmets and gear so they can really see, you know, when those little sparkles hit us, they just melt through. So it just gives us a little time, you know, to go, ow. And after years, almost 30 years of being on fire, you kind of crave it in a weird way. So it's like, man, I didn't even get burned this time. Yeah. But, you know, like the leathers get crinkly and you got to have boots that you can just fly off because you're going to catch on fire and you're going to need to take your boots off quick. Everything's quick. And don't jump in the creek because that's not good water for a fresh wound. It's something you don't realize when you, as Jim said, I worked in the academic world for a while. I'm not good at that because I don't like to ask. I just like to do. So I got in trouble a lot for not asking. And because if I'm going to ask to do that, you know, they're going to say no. So I already knew the answer, but I could always say sorry. Anyway, moving on here. Let's see. Okay, so all the things we need to make iron down there in Salisbury, we had to build them. So the furnace, we built that. We built the crane, all the tools that go with it. These are our, right here you can see all this whole group of interns holding this pot of metal. And there's about 250 pounds of iron in the ladle. So we'll call up the guardian angels, and they're the ones that also help with the weight. And then when they can leave, they run away. So they're not in danger anymore. One of the best nights of the whole year that I look forward to, I can't wait for this year, is when we get to run both of our iron furnaces together at the same time. The smaller one is the one I built in England back in 2002. And then we ran over there for a while. The English, we got them so addicted to the running the iron and building their sculptures that it just took off like crazy. So we were just young punks right out of graduate school. But at the same time, these Royal British Masters that have resumes and books, and Like, why would they listen to us? Well, they don't get to jump in the fire. We let them. We did it all American style. Over there, they're more of a composer of their sculptures, where they'll have the guy make that, they'll have the patina master do that, they'll have the woodshop guy cut the wood. Where we said, well, there's a saw, cut the wood. There's a drill the hole. Put these leathers on, we're pouring the metal. They were in love, and they want to make. Every artist wants to dive right in. I forgot what the heck. Oh, the English sculpture. So anyway, we brought this dude out with a whole bunch of sculptures we made in England. And that Fire at Night event, it's always the very last Saturday of July. And that's when this internship, they're finally good enough. The whole crew can run all of this equipment together. And as soon as we add one more furnace, that every 7 minute tap becomes every 2 to 3 minute taps. So they're destroyed. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, when they're done, they're like, oh my God, we did it. And they're pouring maybe 5,000 or 6,000 pounds of metal in just a couple of hours, which is crazy for artists. And GM, and like there's a beautiful foundry in Memphis that makes almost all the axles on your cars that you drove here today on. They're pouring 100,000 pounds in one tap. So what we're doing is a little tea party. And honestly, all we've done in the 1950s, the Professor Julius Schmidt from Cranbrook, he looked at GM and said, you know what, I'm going to build one of those big monster furnaces, really small, and we can start pouring metal. And that's where the cast iron sculptures all began in America. Where are we at here? Losing track. That's my middle name, losing track. Okay, so this is just a cool picture. This is the furnace as hot as we can get it right here. In fact, right now, we are in the middle of repairing. That's what this picture is. Every time we use the furnace, we have to fix it. So in July, we'll run it 15 times. It means we have to basically rebuild it 15 times because it totally destroys itself. Right now, it's on blast, and we're curing the inside. So the outside's steel jacket, and the inside is about 3 inches of a refractory. It's really just clay and alumina. And the alumina just bounces the heat back so it doesn't melt the steel. But we do get hot enough to melt out that refractory. It starts melting away around about 3,500 degrees. And on the side of the furnace, you can see some oozing glass. And we'll throw in limestone, which our limestone carving community are like, oh my goodness, you're melting stone. We have a lot of this, the limestone symposium folks will come over and play iron with us. And I always want them to do something with our slag. But that's what comes out the side is our refractory and the limestone. It's just a flux is what you would call it. So in the middle of all of July, let's see, what is this?
Bull ladle.
Oh yeah, here's the big giant bull ladle. So what you can't really see is the crane around it all. But this is what it looks like close up. And all the molds always have risers. So these are the vents. So the artists are pouring right here. And as it fills, they know it's full once these all shoot up. And if all 4 vents shoot up, they know, hey, we probably have it. But casting is always a chancy thing, you know. They could get all the way to this point. So when an artist is at this point, they've already worked months and months and months on their patterns. Now they have it into a mold stage. And now tomorrow morning, they're going to open that up. And then they still have a big chunk of iron that has flashing, burning, all these cups all still connected. So they're gonna have to grind it and actually like sculpt this iron. So they've got hundreds of hours. Sculpture's like never done. It seems like we're always saying, hey, I'm done with my pattern. Hey, I'm done with my mold. Hey, I'm done with my casting. And it could be a year later when you finally say, hey, I'm done with my sculpture. Now, why don't you tell them what they're doing here, Lauda?
So before every pour, we have to look over the equipment. So like Gerry was saying, a lot of what we do before we actually pour is we check on Lady D. So we make sure that her inside her factory is looking good before we go ahead and pour. And then so we have to follow that through with the rest of our equipment. So right now, what we see in this picture is in the ladles, what we do is we will take out the lining that is in the ladle from the previous pour. We'll take that all out and then we'll reline it. And what we reline it with is something called bot, which again is essentially like a clay. And that will protect the steel from the metal once it's being poured into there. Yeah.
Katie did everything with a smile. So this is just a shot of our skimmers. There's a skimming job where the limestone and slag and all the impurities that float on the top of the metal, somebody has to stand there and hold any of that back while the crew is pouring, or you'll get a big slag chunk in their casting, which is just part of it. You're going to have to, if you're a caster, you know how to fix all those, but the less impurities, the better for sure. And you can see how bad it is, why we got to fix everything. So this picture was taken right after the craziest thunderstorm I'd ever poured metal in my life. And when you're pouring metal, you don't want anything wet because it explodes. So that steam is probably the most dangerous part of all of this. And if any of that hits like just a little rock, it sounds like a 12 gauge shotgun going off. So we get really, really used to our protective gear. We're protected face on, but if we're looking, we have danger zones all wide open. And that's when folks get hit because you're looking at something else. So we're always telling the interns, just look at it. Don't ever look away. And it's hard when something blows up, it's hard not to just look up and go, wow, but it's all coming back down on you and you better be ready. Oh, let's see. I really like this bull ladle, I guess. Look at that. So see this poor guy holding the chain? If you can see him in real life, we usually have two because the chain falls are super slow and you could go as fast as you're going and you're pulling that chain and it's lifting up this 2,500 pounds of molten iron. And the crew is yelling at you because you need to go up. We can never break the stream of the iron. It always has to stay flowing or you'll have a cold shut. There'll be two pieces of iron in there where there shouldn't be. So that's what they're all kind of freaking out about. And the iron hates being liquid. It just immediately wants to go back to a solid. So we're hurrying. And this poor guy, everybody's yelling at him. They're like, up, up, up. And he's just going and he's dying. You can tell the guy's dying. They're like, switch. And it gets to where they can only do it for like 30 seconds before you're just, because when you're standing next to that type of heat and you're revved up with that kind of adrenaline, it's hard for you to go, hey, I'm getting ready to pass out. I just feel, that wooziness could just go, boom, I'm on the ground. And it's only happened a few times, but heat exhaustion is a big deal. Yeah. And we now have, the beginning of July, we have a nurse come down and teach all of us all the safety issues that we need to deal with. Because artists are not the best for any kind of medical advice. We're kind of the chop it off so we can get back to work. Not let's take care of it and heal and then get back to work. That's the right way to go. Yeah. Get involved in your passion.
So to put things into perspective, when we're using that bowl ladle, it's about an 8 to 9 people team. The reason why is there's going to be, because it's on a big gantry, so we need 2 people on one side to move it, 2 people on the other side to move it. We need at least 2 people for the chain. We need somebody helping us actually tip the ladle, and then we also need somebody who is skimming. So typically when we're pouring with like an average size ladle, it's about like 4 people on a ladle, which is 2 people on each side. And then we have those guardians, those angels that Gerry was talking about. So when we're pouring with the bull ladle, because it's so much larger and so much more intense, we have to double that for safety reasons, but also just because of how labor intensive it really is.
And you got to tag out a lot.
Yeah.
Like even this person here that seems like they're just right in the way, they're the ones trying to make sure that slag isn't going into the metal. And you know who we like? If we can get the artist that made that mold be the skimmer, then it's all their fault if there's little slag in there. Sometimes they don't want to do it, which I understand. It's scary. And that's just a cool picture for the kids. Woo! Let's see oh, the teamwork. Yeah, it's all about the teamwork, man. Especially, we like to bring up to the kids that these days, especially, man, you need to get out there and become a team and see a team and be part of a team. Don't let your team down. At the end of the July session, we can run this whole thing without even talking. It's amazing. And at that moment, that last week, they are literally the best iron crew on the planet with that equipment. And then, next month they'll forget it all. But the coolest thing that we do for schools, actually, we're going to do it this coming Thursday. Yeah, we're going to Bloomfield High School, and the students will design an image, and they designed a big giant oak tree that has every single leaf in the world on it. And it's all about unity. And we chop up that image into 100 tiles. They carve it all, and then we're going to bring our small foundry to the school and pour it right there so that all the kids get to see it. And then the following day, we're going to secretly finish it all and install it. So when they come back on Monday, their sculpture will be there forever. And the kids love it because it's 100 of them. It's their teacher, it's us. And it's just, they get to see for the first time, man. And they get to see how they've made a difference. They have a new piece in the community and teaches them what the sculpture is really supposed to help. It's not just supposed to be a big pile in your yard when you're done. It's hard to get artists to do that next step. It's my best buddy, Nathan Goodson. I bet we've poured 400 to 500,000 pounds of metal together. He has some gorgeous pieces out. One of the best artists I've ever met. So patient. When you talk to him, you can just feel that he just cares what you're saying. You can feel it right here. Good man. Here's one of his sculptures. We'll talk about, I could go in forever. Here's one of my sculptures. Woo! Look at that sunset. Hey, Lauda. What kind of sculptures do you make?
So that's one of the, that's a piece that I had done back when I was in college, and that is a cast iron alligator. So I had casted multiple alligators, and on each of them on the back, I would write something that for me was difficult to deal with at that point in my life. And so that was just, this piece is discussing a relationship that I have with one of my older brothers, and sort of like how I would have rather dealt with an alligator than dealt with his anger, because I felt like the alligator would have shown me more mercy. And so for me, being introduced into iron, it was really, really life-changing, because here was this material that had so much intensity, that had so much community, that had so much to say, that I felt like I needed to get out there. And so it was really, really kind of life-changing to have that being introduced into my life, and then moving out and, having the opportunity to do that with trails was really exciting. So.
And being an alligator, you know about those living out there.
I do.
This is Lauda's piece out at Sculpture Trails. She made it your very first year, right?
Yes. So that was the first piece that I had ever made. It was a really great learning experience, just because there was a lot of things that, the really good thing about the trails is that not only does it offer a really good opportunity to cast somewhere else, but I was able to learn a bunch of things that I hadn't been learning at my college. So a really good thing about the trails is everybody kind of brings in what they know from their university, from their college, from their respective institution. And then you get back all this stuff that you don't get from your institution, or that you might get from another institution. So something that I hadn't learned before was something called core prints, which is just pieces that go into the mold to avoid undercuts and have it really cast the way that you want it casted. So I actually got the opportunity to learn that and understand that through the trails.
All the techniques involved.
Right.
We have a lot of tricks, man. Our biggest trick is to take whatever kind of artist you are and let you still be that master of your craft. So a lot of folks will be like, hey, I'm a painter. I don't do casting. That's wrong. You're an artist, and you can be a caster too. And we have a lot of tricks for folks that love to paint. We have fabricating tricks, and every trick. Casting is literally for every kind of artist, and we can guide you right through it. This was a fun thing to wear the kids out. It's on the website. You can do a print out and send them out there. Look for the silhouettes at the trails and check them off. They'll be whooped. Scavenger hunt, we just did that. So this is it, man. This is what we love to do. A lot of thousands and thousands and thousands of these over the last 20 years. We call them a scratch block. If you come out anytime in July, we have these things ready to go. Right on the website, you can book a pour and tour. It could be 2 people. It doesn't have to be a big giant group anymore. So October is our annual aluminum pour, but it's July that you want to come and play.
Yeah, and we also offer, in addition to the scratch blocks, something we call doodle bowls. And doodle bowls are a similar concept of you get to carve into the sand and create a design that you get to take home. But the doodle bowls are that, but just in a bowl.
So any questions?
Wow.
Hi, I'm just curious about a couple of things. What fuels your furnaces, and is your sculpture trail near where the limestone sculpture trail is too, out by Salisbury?
Pretty much. I mean, the fuels, we use a lot of propane, and thank you, Suburban Propane. They really help us out. And we really couldn't be burning as much propane as we do without them. The other fuel we use is fuel coke, and it's basically coal that's been processed into another substance. It's more like a lava rock, and it can get up to about 4,000 degrees. Yeah. And we can only get that in Alabama. So we drive all the way down to Alabama and get 10,000 pounds, bring it back, unload it, and go get another one. And we need 2 of those to run our 30,000 pounds of metal. So when those artists are doing all that, they don't even realize a lot of times that we've went shopping down. I mean, it's crazy to go get 10,000 pounds of coke with just regular trucks and trailers, and the equipment that comes over to dump the coke on the trailer. The guy had to step out on his tire and look down to figure out where my truck was. He was so huge. But
I was just wondering how many of us have ever been there.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Oh, nice.
Wow, look at this. Great. Fantastic.
For those who haven't, particularly take your family.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's always open and free. So it's a great spot when family comes to visit. Like, what are we going to do? Just swing on out there. This time of year is just gorgeous. It's so green and the flowers. Yes, ma'am.
So this goes to that. You can just go out and walk the trails, or you have to.
Yep. You can it's just open and free all the time.
All the time.
Yep. If you want assistance or a guided tour, then there's a form online. You just submit a form, just say you want it. And then it's probably going to be loud. She's going to call you and say, hey, Wednesday doesn't work. Can we do Thursday? And it all starts like that. So
I was curious, what type of casting do you do? Is it sand casting, investment casting, flash type, or shell type? Or
good question. It's all sand casting, and all of our sand comes from the Chicago area. So again, we can't go shopping if we run out of materials. We got to get 2 semis to bring that to us. And it's a 70 mesh, super clean, white silica sand and resin. We don't really do the ceramic shell at all. In July, the wax, we don't have an indoor facility to work on anything. So it's always 100 degrees or 90 degrees. So the artists that work in wax, it's always like flopping over. But yeah, sand molds is really good for us because sometimes we'll do like a 7,000 pound mold. And a pallet of sand is only 3,000. So when an artist orders all this sand, we know they've got some big plans.
Given that you rely on interns from all over the world, how did you handle COVID?
Really rough. In 2020, thankfully, our bookkeeper had the foresight to realize, even if we wanted, she knew our passion, artist passion will always just cancel out all knowledge that you have. You just go crazy and cloudy. And she's really good at being stern and right on the money. And she said, hey, you need to hold your breath this year. Close your eyes, and we're going to open our eyes next year. And she's always talking about the money. So if we don't do this annual thing all the time, you know, and we do it, but we blow it up and it doesn't work, the next year is going to be ruined. So she was so right. And I was mad. I didn't agree until I found out my two semi guys can't bring me the sand. Oh, the sand guys can't even give me the sand. Oh, the fuel coke in Alabama, I can't even get that. Gas prices were destroyed. So our chemicals are made from oil. And so the demand, everything got ruined. So we literally we shut the doors for 100 days, held our breath. And then in 2021, we came back and we still had like one of the interns, he called and said he can't come and he's really sorry because Russia is invading his country and he had to stand there and wait for the soldiers because they will just take his farm. And it's him and his 13-year-old brother. So these were the excuses we were getting, or family has died and I have 3 jobs. And so like real heavy duty excuses for about 7 of them to not show up. It really honestly felt like 2023 was we're back to normal, full throttle, 100 miles an hour, and we can deal with a lot of issues showing up now and be in front of a lot of what's happening. So
we have a question online. Sally.
Hey, Gerry and Laura, I'm such a fan of what you do. You have a massive operation. How do you support yourselves through the 501c3?
Oh, well, it is very hard. And just talking about the next 20 years, one of the things we're doing is we're creating a grant team. So if anybody loves to write grants or you need a little side gig, please let me know. Because we have so many little programs that they're already working and running, so it'll be easy to write grants for. And I can't do it all myself, so I'm finally realizing I need help. So granting is one big way. Donations are huge. Material donations are monster. Just the propane donations, and sometimes we'll get iron donations. That's an insane amount of money that we would not have. In fact, a lot of what we do is in gamble mode, and the board don't really like my gambling techniques where we're like the weeks we've booked for the iron workshop is based on if I get all these donations. If we don't, then we just got to eat it because but that's how you got to do things.
Last question.
It's an amazing place, Gerry, and hats off to you for doing it. How many pieces do you have on the trails, and do they stay forever? Do you swap them out, or I mean, some of them are big pieces. So
great question. It's really 2 collections out there. There's the permanent collection, which a lot of those are from around the world. They're never going home. The other one is a 2-year ongoing show that we call the International Cast Iron Exhibition. And anybody involved with the July workshops, artists or interns, get an opportunity to be part of that. So if they can create a piece, get it finished and installed, then it could be on show for 2 years. After that 2-year period, we have a moment where the museum or the artist can grab the piece, and either make their ways or it can become a permanent piece. So to answer your question in short, it changes a lot. Last year, we just took out 15, added 13. I'm trying to stay around 100 sculptures and we're at 185. So I'm not doing very good.
No.
So thank you all for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing your artistry with us. It's a very hot topic, obviously. I want to make some acknowledgments because this meeting wouldn't be a success without the help of several people. Greeter, Art Homage, and he stood in for Lori who had to take a trip unexpectedly. Introductions, Dave Meyer. Our Zoom host, Sally Gaskell. Reflection, Roy Graham. Bob Salzberg, our reporter. Michael Shermis running the mic and the camera, and obviously our Zoom producer and audio person, Tyler Martin Taylor. Our next meeting will be the 14th, and we'll be in Stateroom East, and our speaker will be Tim Ford, speaking on communications when we disagree. Important topic. And by the way, for our speakers today, a donation was made in your honor to the Hoosier Hills Food Bank. So thank you for being with us. If you will stand and join me in the four-way test of the things we say, think, say, and believe. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all? And is it fun?